You're listening to the Visionary Lifestyle Podcast, the show that's dedicated to raising consciousness and empowering you to activate your highest potential. I'm your host, Magda Freedom Rod. Greetings, Rainbow Warriors. I'm coming to you today from Split, Croatia. As I mentioned on the last show, I needed to exit the Schengen territory for a month due to visa restrictions. Damn you, borders. And after exploring many opportunities, I decided on Croatia. Apologies for the show being a bit late this week because I've been moving around a lot and haven't had an adequate place to work or record the show. So welcome to the world of a digital nomad. I'm saving a month of my Schengen Visa allowance for September when I'm offering a yoga and nature retreat in Sicily, Italy, guys. And then moving on to Portugal for the DNX Festival, where I'll be speaking about wellness on the road. And hey, did you notice I'm also offering a 2-week Wellness Workation in Bali in October? Check the show notes for links if any of those are calling you, and sign up quick because early bird pricing is just about to expire. You can catch details for that on my Facebook page and my Instagram account as well. So now on to today's show. Our guest is Silvia Christmann. Silvia's Instagram bio reads, business advisor, growth coach, speaker, mindful nomad, yogi, meditator. Well, I think she fits right in here, doesn't she, guys? Silvia is a growth coach and business mentor who spent the last 12 years helping high achievers develop themselves, create the lives they want, and build successful businesses. Her mission is to maximize global impact by curating human potential. She works with people who dare to care, challenge dated systems, and transform the status quo. Her clients are visionaries and change makers driven to create the change they want to see in this world, building innovative, successful businesses while staying grounded in a meaningful life well lived. Achieving any audacious goal starts from a place of self-discovery and requires personal development. She gives her clients dynamic frameworks in which they can consistently learn, grow, and change. These frameworks provide the foundation needed to overcome obstacles and create clarity for effective execution. She was born in Germany, raised across Europe, and has worked in more than 7 countries. She's cultivated a high level of cross-cultural competence, which has allowed her to establish a global client base. In her early career, she specialized in business development and helped build successful companies from pre-revenue to their first million and beyond. She now focuses on structuring businesses and transforming leaders during periods of rapid scale. Before starting her boutique practice in 2011, she was part of 3 startups and played a central role in launching Media Radar. Under her tenure, the company developed into an ad tech leader with more than 20 million in revenue. She's been honored to work closely with tech entrepreneurs, hedge fund managers, physicians, lawyers, and professional athletes, as well as C-level executives at companies like Google, Bridgewater, PwC, Deutsch, and Tom's Shoes, among many others. And she's a keynote speaker who teaches seminars at Columbia University, Fortune 100 companies, and numerous global conferences. And she's a yogi and a vegan, guys. I met Silvia at the DNX Global Conference in Lisbon last year. When I heard her presentation where she talked about freedom and so many other values I hold dear, I knew I needed to interview her. What I found during our conversation was a kindred spirit, another nomad on the path, doing her part to create positive change in the world. We talk about everything from her tools for sleeping well, despite constant travel, to magical thinking, veganism, and right livelihood. There are lots of juicy nuggets for you to discover here. I hope you enjoy this episode and find some inspiration in it. Part of this series of interviews from the DNX tribe is to show you models of possibility, to show you that there are people traveling the world nomadically and doing what they love. My intention is to inspire, empower, and support you on your journey of activating your highest potential. And if traveling more is one of your goals, this show and this season is for you. As usual, check out the show notes for links to Silvia's work, and you can find that on visionary-lifestyle.com/podcast. Enjoy and namaste. Silvia Christmann, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so happy that we managed to carve out the time here in Lisbon. I met you at the DNX conference, and it was really, what's the right word? I was happy to connect with your energy, to learn about you, and to hear your story. And as much as possible here during this little adventure in Lisbon, this whole DNX thing, connecting with like-minded people, the digital nomads, people that are traveling the world like yourself. You're a coach, right? So you're working with people all over the place, mostly virtually, I imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, and traveling all over. And you said a couple of things in your story on stage that really got my attention that I want to dive a little deeper into.
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
How long have you been traveling, first of all?
More or less for about 17 years. Yeah.
17 years.
Yeah.
So you were a nomad before you were a digital nomad, huh?
Yeah, when I started traveling, I was still sending home faxes.
Wow.
Definitely not a digital nomad.
Mm-hmm. So, wow, so traveling for 17 years. So you haven't had a solid base in 17 years? Really?
I've had several different bases
Mm-hmm.
at different stages of my life,
Yeah.
but I have consistently moved around the world, yeah.
Okay. You're also a yogi, yeah?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
You're vegan.
Yes.
Yeah, so already we have lots in common. Traveling vegan yogis.
Yeah.
My favorite word is yomad, yoga nomad.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're yomads.
I know. I've had various different titles. I was a vagabond, a gypster, jet setter, yomad. Yomad is good. I like that.
Yeah. Hashtag yomad.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So, well, let's start first talking about your yoga practice.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you practice when you're traveling all the time?
Well, I am an Ashtanga yogi, so I've been practicing that for a really long time. Nowadays, I don't do the primary, secondary series in the sequence and the shape it was intended to anymore. But I do take a lot from the practice with me on the road. So I have my yoga mat with me everywhere I go, and every morning I find a quiet spot and I try to practice for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on what the flow is in the day and depending on the climate, the environment where I came from. So what I do today is that I honor my body in a way where I adjust my practice to the climate, whether or not I just got off an airplane, the food I've been eating, the people I've been around, so that I just cater to its need to find that kind of balance for myself every day.
Yeah, thank God for yoga, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? Like, I don't know where I would be without
I know.
yoga. It's the grounding force in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's the thread.
Mm-hmm.
It's the common denominator between being everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
The one thing that's like coming home, right? It's like
Yeah.
you have that mat in your home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm impressed that you actually travel with a mat.
Yeah.
It seems like a big heavy thing to carry all around the world. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a heavy one too.
I don't have the light version of it. I know. Yeah.
Not a
I want to
traveler.
say the older I get, the more the items in my suitcase are completely unreasonable for a traveler.
Yeah.
Because it's anything between, somebody lifted my suitcase the other day and said, "What do you have in there? Rocks?" And I said, "Actually, yeah. Crystal, yoga mat. My yoga mat alone, I think, is 7 pounds.
Yeah.
Crystals and lots of lotions and potions and tinctures and oils and powders and, vegan supplements and things that I want to have with me, because sometimes where places I go, I cannot have the foods that would keep me really nourished.
Was it you that said that half of your suitcase is supplements, like vegan superfoods and stuff?
Yeah, it's superfoods and superfoods, oils.
What kind of oils?
Essential oils.
Okay.
A lot of essential oils.
Yeah, and you mentioned something about you have like a sleep routine, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Sure. So for most of my life, it's been very difficult to sleep. So I had a lot of night terrors when I was younger, and so sleep training was a very essential part of my life. And it was the fact that now I can actually just fall into deep sleep is a complete miracle to me. And so because I travel so much, I took those principles of sleep training on the road to make sure that I maintain consistency in my routines, even though my environment and the bed and sometimes even the people next to me can vary, right? When you live a nomadic life, there's sometimes 3-4 beds in the room, right? And so what I do is at night I often take a hot shower just to calm down, make a warm tea or warm water depending where I am. I prefer to have a chamomile tea with lavender. Sometimes I don't have that. Warm water with lemon does the job. And then I do my evening meditation, do a little, checking in with myself to make sure I empty out so I don't take any thoughts, worries, plans for tomorrow into my sleep, that I put it out or write it out, make a note of it. And then I just retire, go to sleep, and I always carry a sleep mask and earplugs with me. I have lavender with me, so the lavender I put on the soles of my feet because it really helps you go to sleep very quickly. And also the scent of it, I put it on my pillow so that the sound and my senses seem to have consistency before I go to sleep, and I just kind of drop into deep sleep very quickly.
Beautiful. Do you know what your Ayurvedic type is, or your dosha? Are you
I go between a Vata and Pitta. So when I travel, I have to watch out for my Vata.
Right.
Because I get ungrounded very easily, so I don't do raw foods on the road. We saw each other on Sunday, and I've had too many raw foods because I was craving vegetables, and I get very ungrounded and literally disoriented, where I just need warm, grounding food to keep me grounded.
Get me some sweet potatoes.
Exactly. Something warm and grounding.
Barley soup.
Khichdi would be ideal.
Yeah, khichdi. The traveling in India is pretty nice because you can generally find some yummy, warm, grounding food. But certain places like Bali, not so much, right? Yeah. Depends where you are.
Yeah, the raw foods in Bali are just not for my dosha when I'm traveling. And sometimes when I pacify the Vata, I'm throwing the fire on the Pitta, so I have to be careful of what the environment is, so that I'm always nurturing my body based on where I am, who I'm around, and the climate.
This is one of my favorite things about Ayurveda, is that it is so tailored to the individual. And it sounds like you're really knowledgeable. And after 17 years on the road, you've learned some things about what works for you and what doesn't. Yeah. But it's nice to hear you talking about what works for you. Like, you've spent that time investigating that and studying that. And this is what it really draws me to Ayurveda very strongly, is the fact that it is so individualized, because it's like spirulina is the next big thing, but the Ayurveda always brings the question, for who? Right? Maybe depends on what your dosha is, depends on the time of year, depends where you are. There's so many variables, right? So that's cool that you know about that. So you have never done a yoga teacher training. You don't teach yoga, right?
No, I have done yoga teacher trainings. I'm certified in various different disciplines. I don't teach them necessarily.
Okay.
But
all right.
Some of them were I'm a Jivamukti yoga teacher.
Oh, wow.
So I've done several others as well, but that's sort of my main lineage. I see most of them as just part of my education and self-knowledge. Just because I gathered the knowledge does not mean that I am a yoga teacher.
Right.
It didn't feel like that was my path. It is part of my practice, and I think if you're around me, if you travel with me, you'll notice it's a big part of my life and day. I am very much on the yogic path. There's never been a question for me about this. Even meditation practices whether it's Vedic meditation practices, are from the same path. They all come from the Vedas.
Right.
So
how much have you studied the 8 limbs? Do you feel like you embrace the 8 limbs, or at least the 7? Not going into samadhi, but do you practice the yamas and the niyamas, or you study those at all? Or?
Yes, I studied them. I go through different phases. I would say at the moment, no. I think a few years ago, when I was very rigorous on the yogic path, I did my best to live within them every day. And then there were just shifts in my life, and now I'm not observing them as much as I was. Yeah,
when I think of the yogic path, the first thing that comes into my mind is the 8 limbs, because one of my missions with the show is to help people understand that yoga is more than just rolling out your mat and doing the asana, So when we say the yogic path, it brings so much more into it. And you are a daily meditator, I'm hearing that. Yeah, so that's part of it.
Devotion is a big part, prayer.
Bhakti.
The bhakti. Yeah, I mean, the bhakti yogis is just, I mean, I'm just so drawn to it.
Yeah.
There are phases in my life where it really runs the show and it takes up most of my time. At the moment, I want to say that travel and my business and working with people really takes up a lot of it. So I draw upon it, but it is not the dominant practice in my life. You know, it's the same, it's similar to, you know, my practice isn't what it used to be because now it evolves more around being flexible to the environment.
Yeah, yeah. So how does it, well, tell us more about your coaching practice. What do you specialize in?
Well, I would say I create frameworks for growth with an emphasis on them being nimble. That, you know, personally in my journey, I've always reserved myself the right to change my mind. And I want to make sure when I create frameworks with people and for people that they're very unique and tailored to who they are and where they are at that time, but that there's room for growth. So whatever journey they go on after working with me, they understand that it's something of a nimble, expansive process where they can consistently bring into the framework new practices that keep them, you know, in a process of leveling up. Or sometimes it might just be what they need is not leveling up. You don't always have to get better at something. Sometimes you have to find consistency and be at peace with where you are. You know, it doesn't always have to get better. It can just be fine the way it is.
Yeah, maybe working on that contentment a little bit more, like, you know, that santosha, right? Like finding the contentment in what is, maybe.
Right. Yeah, and also understanding that you go through different phases, right? It's like you go through a rajasic phase just as much as you go through a tamasic phase, right? And there's the sattvic somewhere in between. So, and I mean, literally you go through that on a daily basis. When you sleep, when you're awake, when you exercise, when you meditate, you know, you touch all three of them. So it's a consistent form of growth.
Yeah.
And so my coaching practice evolves around that, draw upon that a lot in the practice, that I don't have a set process, I don't have a formula. I try to, you know, I think a lot of coaching programs I've also been part of really didn't work for me, which is why I don't use them, because they seem to have a formula and a funnel in which they were trying to put all people into, while I am much more on the similar to Ayurveda, I want to look at the person and see who are you, where are you, what's your unique makeup and circumstances, and what can we do, and what can we create for you that helps you thrive.
And is it both personal and professional growth, or is it more than one than the other? Okay.
Well, it sometimes depends on the client. And I mean, I do work with a lot of founders and people that build businesses that want to have somebody as their sounding board and independent advisor to them that helps them on the interpersonal side of things, creating frameworks in which they don't get wrapped up in burnout and can stay consistently on course. But I also coach people just on the personal development side, where we look at what is your life, you know, how do you want to feel, you know, what do you want to create in your relationships, and what are the things that you would really like to change.
Yeah, interesting. And you talked a bit about freedom in your presentation. I remember there was a slide, I think I took a picture of the slide that said something about freedom. What is freedom about for you?
Well, I think when you say a little bit, I would say it probably talked about freedom a lot. It's kind of the dominant force in my life path.
Okay.
I don't know if you follow numerology, but numerology also has a 5 life path, which is very clear that I'm a freedom seeker, and that is the #1 force in my life. And my life evolves around expansion, adventure, and personal freedom. So I always say that I was born that way. I don't think that my life circumstances, good or bad, whichever they were, contributed much to that need. Pretty sure that was in my genetic karmic footprint, and life is unfolding according to that. I always say that I had to learn how to practice freedom as a discipline, because my need for freedom in my younger years also made me act out my impulses. without a plan, and then also very carelessly, where, you know, so often my health would suffer, or I didn't think things through, and I would run on empty very quickly, you know, and so learning how to harness this very powerful energy and create a container for it, in which I can harness it and create something with it, and make that my driving force, and that actually is something that comes together and is forceful, and not something that, you know, drives me energetically into the ground because I overextend myself because there's too many things I find exciting. So having a little discipline around that, and meditation and yoga, really, you know, as you said it earlier, it's a feeling of coming home every day. It's one place for me to come home and just reel in the energy and center and focus and ground myself into the earth wherever I am in the world, to make sure I check in with myself and really read, like, what's a hell yes and what's a definitely no, and what's just a fleeting notion of excitement that may not be something I want to see through. So to really create that container for it, and a little bit of discipline, gave me more freedom than I ever had before.
This is interesting, yeah, because I think of freedom. Oh, you're really getting my wheels turning in my mind right now with this, because freedom you think of as, or speaking for myself, I think of as boundless, right? I'm free to go wherever I want, do whatever I want, whenever I want. Like, that's freedom. It's like boundless. It has no boundaries. But you're talking about a container, and it's a different mindset, and it's really intriguing to me. And I'm really interested in exploring this a little bit more. And so when you say a discipline, can you explain that a little bit more? What is you're talking about? Having personal practices that ground you.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a form of discipline. Like having a yoga practice is a discipline, right? Having rituals, you know, whether that's my evening ritual that really gave me the freedom of amazing sleep, and I'm never tired, no matter where I am. I'm not somebody that gets there and comes home and says, oh, you know, finally I can sleep well again because I'm home, because I'm rarely ever home, you know, there's no such thing. So, you know, with a little bit of discipline, I learned how to sleep just about anywhere, you know, and be not so affected by changing environments. Diet, right? Like, if you observe a certain lifestyle and you're on the Ahimsa path, and you want to have a non-harming lifestyle and diet, there is a little bit of discipline around that. To me, it does not feel restricting because it follows a purpose, right? And with that, I harness in a certain energy and the meaning to it that, you know, makes it so much easier for me to also ask in different environments for what I need, what I look for, and explaining to people why it is that I observe these practices. Yeah, so things that help you come to center and stay true to yourself. And yeah, this is interesting. Well, going a little deeper into diet, I know there was one comment that you got on stage that as soon as you said it, I was like, I need to interview her. You talked about the energy of eating dead animals. Right. I was like, yeah, she did. She just said that in a room of 500 people. Thank you very much. Good job. You said it in passing and moved on to the next. I was like, cha-ching. Like, I was just so happy you said that. But can you talk about that a little bit more? Yeah. I don't think I meant to say that. I always try to edit it a little bit, but there was definitely one of those moments where, these things just come out. You know, because to me it's logic.
But you're being authentic, so
yeah. I mean, it's logic. So when I talk to people about eating animals and animal products, I'm no judge of what you choose to do. I just sometimes like to point out the obvious. And for me, that's a very I can hear the argument that there are humane ways to raise cattle, I guess. I can hear that to a certain degree. I do not see if there's any possible way to kill an animal without it experiencing some trauma. Yeah. And the adrenaline rush, the transportation of animal, or I mean, you know, even the production, even though I don't like to use that word, of, you know, you have to multiply this species in a way which has to be artificial to create all of this. So all of this creates trauma. There's a traumatic way in which they're conceived. There's a traumatic way. They may be grass-fed. It's possible. Could be. I've seen some free runs running around. Don't think that they were conceived without the trauma, and I don't think that they left their life without trauma. So whatever's running in their system, I just don't think I want that in mine, because I spent so much time in my life clearing my own traumas and keeping a very clean body and a clean temple and a clear mind, right? Like clean body, clear mind. That to me just makes sense.
Yeah. So when you look at it from an energetic perspective.
Yeah.
And then how about from a health perspective for you? Why do you make the choice? Or is it the animal rights that is your main driver for choosing not to eat animals? Is it the energy?
I don't even think it's an animal rights thing. That's just logic.
It sounds like energy.
It's energy. Like I just can't disconnect the logic. If you follow it through and you really do some research on it and spend some time on it, I hear you. You want to eat your dead flesh and all that. That's fine. But I just, I don't. To me, it's more logic than anything else. And to me, mammals are so closely related to us, also from an energetic frequency. Have you ever played with a pig? They're so cute.
Yeah, they're super smart and they're super cute. In fact, I'm gonna tell you a secret that I've never said on this show before, that you just reminded me of. As a child, my name is Magda, right? As a child, my nickname was Pigda. I don't even know how it started or where it happened. I was in love with pigs as a child. And every time there was a birthday or Christmas or whatever, everybody always gave me pigs. I used to have a big mama pig with all the little babies with the Velcro on their nose to like nurse on the mama. I don't even know how that started. I was just obsessed with pigs. So now the secret's out. Don't write me messages and call me Pigda. But that was then and this is now. But yeah, pigs are amazing. Yeah. And yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that we're eating them either. My approach to the food decision is threefold. It's self-love, animal love, and planet love. So I'm coming from all three at once. And the energy part is something that I don't talk about that much. And I feel like it's beyond the grasp of a lot of people. So I'm glad that you're shining a light on that. And it inspires me to remind people about that more, and I guess sometimes I'm concerned that maybe it's a divisive thing for people, that they go, oh, well, you're just on a different planet than I am, if that's what you're thinking, and that's okay. Right?
Maybe. What I find so interesting, I think for me, because I'm such a freedom seeker, and it's very important for me to follow aesthetics, and things have to be pretty and they have to feel good and the vibes have to be right, and like your vibe attracts your tribe and those are your people and the things that you hang out with. And when I talk about that, just about anybody can tap into that. So when I link that to, well, that's energy, if I talk about your vibe and the tribe and the people I like to hang with, that's no different than the vibe that we're taking in if we're literally eating trauma that was living in the animal.
Yeah.
I mean, look, do you know this book called Trauma Lives in the Body, or The Body Keeps Score, I think is the name of the book? It's a beautiful book about trauma, and it's one of the best ones I've read so far that really talks about how trauma lives so deeply in the body. It's not because it's not a mental thing, it's literally a physiological thing. It lives in the body. And soldiers deal with that, PTSD patients deal with that. And it's very much part of modern conversation. I don't see how that is disconnected from what I was just suggesting at all. It's just a question of whether or not people make the connection.
That's another one of my favorite hashtags, make the connection. Because I like to point out to people that especially in terms of food, that your food choices have far-reaching consequences, and most people are completely oblivious to that chain of consequences. So that's something that I'm working pretty hard to help people make that connection.
Well, it's uncomfortable, right? I mean, the uncomfortable truth is not easy to sit with, and I think it takes certain tools to be comfortable with your own uncomfortable truth, and also accepting that I am not perfect in my own journey, and I'm not trying to be. I'm not here to preach or tell anybody how to live. I just, I try to do my best, and I create frameworks in which I can accomplish this. I'm happy to share that, because that's the stuff that makes these uncomfortable truths a little bit easier.
Yeah, beautiful. I think people have a hard time looking at themselves when they hear some of the statistics or the facts, and they say they just don't want to believe that they're part of the problem. And it is hard to look, right? It is hard to look at yourself as part of that, and this is why people get defensive and whatnot. It's understandable. It's understandable. So I'm constantly striving to find an approach that doesn't make people defensive or feel ashamed or whatever. I'm just, here's some stuff you might not be aware of, and if you know better, maybe you'll do better. Not that it's necessarily better, it's just, well, maybe it is better, but not in terms of you being bad for making this choice and you being good for making the other choice. It's I try to come at it from a holistic view as well, rather than personalizing. So the thing I appreciate about Ayurveda, as I said, is that it has this very personalized approach. But when it comes to food, I really look at it from a global approach. So understanding that your food choices affect everyone on the planet, Yeah. So that's cool that you're listening to your body, and that's an important part. That's the self-love part. But then there's the entire planet to consider as well.
Well, I really think that it's about attraction, not promotion, right? So if you ask me a question like you do, I'm happy to answer that. I don't walk around and tell people about this, it's just something that if it comes up, if you overhear me say this on a side note somewhere where I happen to mention this in a speech in front of 500 people, yes, there's some follow-up questions that I'm happy to answer. But it really is about the attraction, right? And I think for me, health has been my lifelong journey, and they are just simply ailments I used to have I no longer have to worry about. Since I changed my diet. And that was the biggest change in my life. And I think with that comes a certain radiance and a certain aliveness and an inspiration that does create a bit of an attraction where people feel more inclined to ask me questions.
Right. Well, what are you doing? I want what she's got kind of thing. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Well, how has that journey been for you? When did you stop eating animals? When did you put that together?
I mean,
it's been an evolution, I imagine.
Well, it's been, I was raised in a very hippie environment where eating animals was already not the cool thing to do. I just don't think that I just did what the cool kids did, and that was, saving the rainforest and not eating meat, and
That's my kind of family,
right? Yeah. That's what the cool kids do in hippie school, right? And you try to fit in just like anywhere else.
We need more of those schools.
Right? It looks a little different.
Where that's the norm.
And then I think as a teenager and younger adult, I went through this rebellious phase where I just wanted to be normal. I wanted to be conventional and sort of fit there. And then when I moved to the United States, I was exploring the whole idea of eating burgers, and that did not work out well for me at all.
Didn't work out well?
I got very ill very quickly.
Really?
And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and the hormones in my body just couldn't keep up because I had never consumed products that were infused with hormones like these foods tend to be. So my body was, and I went back to Germany, and my homeopathic pediatrician said, I don't know what to tell you other than just don't touch any of that. And then I started, easing into eliminating certain things from my diet, definitely all conventional dairy products and meat products, because they, the animals are fed hormones that clearly my body was not being able to process. And with that, everything went away. I stopped having the migraines, the cystic acne, the ailments, what do they call it in English? It's called like some stomach issue where you constantly have an upset stomach.
Digestive
issues.
The
digestive. It's called irritable bowel syndrome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, also went away. So, I listened to my doctor from home, and it turned out that, in fact, whatever I was consuming was the cause of this. And then when I started with, pretty simultaneously, I started taking care of myself better, and yoga and meditation made its way into my life. And with that, the people around me, especially because I started with Jiva Mukti, they were so kind to themselves and so kind to the planet, and you can feel that your body opens up more, and you can get into the poses faster. And like many others, I was driven by vanity and wanting to compete. So you just got more and more into the idea of taking care of yourself to expand your experience, and that really then became decision maker. But it wasn't a decision, it's just a process. And then at some point you wake up and you're like, okay, I haven't had any sugar or dairy or gluten or animal products in a really long time, and I feel great.
Yeah, that's you making the connection, right? Piece by piece. Did you do your Jiva Mukta training in New York?
No, in upstate New York.
Oh, upstate, not in the city. Okay.
Yeah, they held, at the time they were doing, that was in 2010, maybe?
Yeah, I recommend to people, even if they don't want to teach yoga, to do a training, because it deepens your practice so much, right? That was something that really impressed me when I took my training. I really went with an intention to teach, but I was like, wow, my own practice developed so much, and that was just kind of something I hadn't really put thought into before I did it. So I love to recommend to people to do that and to deepen their own practice, even if they don't plan to teach. It's a good thing to do.
I do. I mean, I think a lot of these trainings that I did because I wanted to learn more. You know, I'm definitely hungry for knowledge. Yeah. Some of the things I learned along the way are just the unmentionables that nobody, I'm never going to teach. But yoga, especially the Jiva Mukti program, I have to say, was my favorite. Because it took several months prior to it. I went to India and prepared for the training to, go to places that we were talking about, that we were learning about, and visiting them and reading the books required prior to the start of training. There's a lot of work to do prior to the training before you even start the training. And I wanted to do it in the environment in where these teachings came from. So I spent a year in Southeast Asia and India to prepare for this training, and then did the teacher training, which was profound.
Wow. And I would imagine with all that prep. Where in India? All over?
All over.
Okay.
All over. But I spent a lot of time in Mysore, because obviously that's where Sharon and Dan, Sharon and David's teacher, and a lot of my teachers and mentors spend a lot of time with Guruji and Patabi Joyce.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. So a year of prep and then the training.
But that was my journey. I don't think other people did that. I just take things very seriously. And then I left not wanting to teach, but
Yeah, interesting. So how did you make your way from that into coaching, and what was the timeline on that? Was it after all of that you started coaching? And so how did the coaching evolve then?
Well, I had a mentor. I've had a mentor for like the last 13 years, I want to say. And that really impacted my decisions, and most of the time I always checked in with somebody to do this, and this is why I always had these frameworks in which I could ask somebody who was an independent sounding board. They were not a friend, not a family member, just somebody who I hired or spoke with that, dedicated themselves to my journey and being there for me to maximize my experience and growth, because I always ventured out so far from the conventional path that I thought it wise to have somebody who could help me navigate the unconventional life in that sense. So with that, I always placed a great emphasis on that. I had mentors and I had people in yoga. I had a mentor, and people, it just really resonated with me, and I think people just then started coming to me to want to be mentored. And so I did some more research and studies in positive psychology and coaching trainings and stuff like that. None of which I found as profound as the things that I had learned from the more spiritual, unconventional mentors I have received, that were much more integrated in the aspect of body, mind, and soul. I mean, obviously, positive psychology works around psychology, the mind. Right. And I found that yoga for me was the yoking, the integration of yoga, mind and spirit, and also cathartic processes, and learning how to work with the body, the soul, the energy levels, and the mind together to accomplish something. And simultaneously, I worked in startups, and I was part of building 3 different startups. So business has always been very natural to me, and the art of the hustle and the art of ambition is something I've loved from, the day I left college, or probably the day I left home and started traveling, right? So and all of that just created an energy where people came to me and asked me to either mentor them, to coach them for their business, they become better leaders. and learn how to practice and leverage self-care as a form of self-leadership to inspire others and create change that they want to see in the world, either because they want to create impact-driven companies and make a difference in this world, or they become because they want to be an impactful person for the people around them.
Yeah, cool. So are you familiar with the term right livelihood?
No.
Right livelihood, it's so whatever you're doing, have it be something that benefits others. So you're not just, it's not just a single bottom line business where it's just profit. It's a triple bottom line business being people, planet, and profit.
Yeah.
And then right livelihood, very similar to a triple line business, but not necessarily even for profit, just right livelihood. So whatever you do to make a living in the world, make sure it benefits others. So that comes, for me, that's very aligned with the yogic path, right?
Yeah.
Because it's seva, it's being of service to the world, so that, as I'm doing my work, it's very much a driving force for me of what can I do to be of service. It's not about me, it's me being a conduit or a vessel to make things better for the world as much as I can. So right livelihood is something that resonates really deeply with me, which I would say every social entrepreneur is, practicing right livelihood,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Would you say that the companies and the individuals that you work with are more on that path, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just something they aspire to, it's something that they want to bring into their lives or integrate. Sometimes they just want to, a lot of times I want to say that, they create a lot of wealth at the expense of their health or personal relationships, so that there's a hunger for change. That change is usually, I think most of us started that sort of narcissistic pursuit of self before we realized that it's all integrated, that what we do affects others. So I want to say the motivation is often driven by self, and it then translates into the impact it has as they see the change in themselves and the people around them.
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the word narcissistic, because I guess it's a fine line, right? Because it can be viewed as narcissistic, and it's a fine line, or it could even be two sides of the same coin. Because in some way, yes, it's people are selfish, right? Trying to, just focusing on themselves, but the hidden gem in that is that it's just basically the same thing you're saying in different words, but as they develop themselves, they get better, and then they want to put, once they feel better and balanced and strong within themselves, I would hope that evolves into a desire to give back and make things better for others, right? So we have to start with the self. So it's tricky, right? Because, Lord knows there are narcissists in the world, and more every day, unfortunately. And I've learned a lot about that in the last few years. And but there's, at the same time, like very close to that, maybe, I don't know if it's parallel, I don't know if it's the other side of the coin, or what I'm reaching for here with the words that I'm using, but I can see it and I can feel it, that it feels like two parallel rivers swimming next to each other. Like on one side, it's narcissism and it's just selfish and not caring about anyone else. On the other river, it's improving self in order to, it's like filling up your cup so that you have enough to share, which is completely necessary, right? So I always want to encourage people, yes, to do your personal work, if you, right? It's not narcissistic to focus on yourself.
No, self-care is not selfish. Right. It's Healthy
essential.
Boundaries are necessary.
Yes,
right?
And that's one of the things that comes up a lot with narcissism.
I just think the motivation often is driven by this narcissistic pursuit of self. So, I joke about this with marketers or branding people I've worked with too. It's like, look, it's really simple. You have to actually talk to them about the want, because that's what people latch onto, and then the whole program is delivering on the need.
Yeah.
The need is usually something we have to actually shed a few layers to get in there, to understand what is that you really need. We know what you think you want. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what you really need, and that's a process. And that's a journey that we then go on together.
Amazing. I think of it sometimes as like the Trojan horse. Sell them what they want and give them what they need, right?
Totally.
So you could package it, right, with all the sparkles and bells and whistles, and this is what you want.
I don't think I've ever had a client come to me and be like, here's what I need. It's like, no, here's what I want.
Yeah.
Which is most of the time not what they need. But we get there.
So the work you do together is kind of uncovering what the need is, the underlying need. Yeah.
Limiting beliefs, like what's the story we're telling ourselves here that we think we need this, I want this. And pain is what drives a lot of change. So it's the path of pleasure, which I prefer to be on, and there's the path of pain, you know, like either one of those are going to trigger the want in a person to want to change. You know, mediocrity where things are just floating doesn't create a lot of change.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit boring as well, isn't it?
Empty, maybe. Yeah, but I think there's plenty of people that happily just kind of sail along. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think the people most motivated are people that really want to indulge life with all of their senses, which I call myself. I think I'm one of those. And then people that, you know, just things are just have become so hard and painful that change is inevitable. It has to be addressed.
Yeah, it's a good reminder for people that if you're in a painful, air quotes, painful place, or, you know, one of the quotes I heard recently that I really resonated with, if you're in the darkness, you know, consider that it may not be the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb, right? So like looking at it as you're gestating, you're growing, right? And soon, you know, if you play your cards right, soon, you know, you're going to be the butterfly, right?
Yeah, totally. Well, if you do the work.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's important to remember. I personally don't think that there's the magic button where you can have this one-time life-changing experience, which you can. They can be catalysts. At the end of the day, all of this stuff is work. It's consistency and work and commitment to staying on a certain path that, you know, allow you to consistently learn and grow and change.
So if we're going to make a list of what the work is, what does that include?
I don't know. I mean, it can change. It's various different things. Could be anything from taking care of your health, self-care, learning how to set healthy boundaries with others. If you're a people pleaser, the work can evolve around, you know, it changes for anybody, right? Could be that you know, might need to make some lifestyle changes, you know, let go of some limiting beliefs that keep you from seeing what's right in front of you, doing some deep healing work around trauma and, you know, stories that we might be still telling ourselves and holding on to that no longer serve us at all. I mean, that could be a few.
Yeah, some self-reflection, huh?
Yeah, self-reflection, so definitely.
Yeah. That's work. A lot of people want to avoid this stuff, and no, I'll just go and drink beer or drink wine and go to sleep, and, you know.
Yeah, I think another one now is too that I'll just like go take some hallucinogenics and take a shortcut and expand my self-experience.
Okay, so tell me more about that, the hallucinogenics, and your view on this.
I would say what I've seen is that it's a great gateway. It's a great introduction to growth and expansive experience to understand life in a more connected way, an interconnected way. What I've also seen is that the work that are more in the day-to-day and the integration that can be very helpful to make that a very expansive, sustainable experience often is not provided. So there's great enthusiasm into that initial, you know, practice, but at the end of the day, the integration of that is sustainable is still work on a day-to-day. I still have to learn how to communicate with people around me, how to set these boundaries, how to practice these principles in all of my affairs and communicate that well, and not, you know, check out to have yet again another expansive experience without integrating it into life.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that really rings true for me as well. You mentioned boundaries several times, and it's prompting the question in me to ask you more about that. What are healthy boundaries? Maybe you could give some tips to the listeners around this one.
Yeah, I like to joke about the fact that I'm a very boundary person. Like, you'll know my boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, it started off with a self-practice of self-care, that I needed to learn how to set healthy boundaries for the people in my life, to let them know what I needed when I needed it, not act out of a false sense of obligation, and be authentic with them at any given moment. Right, so that I clearly communicate where I am, what I can and cannot do, not overcommit myself, and then not be happy with what I commit myself to. Right, so a lot of people that I work with, and I see that in my practice, is that's something that's an issue for most of us. Right, really learning how to set these healthy boundaries, how to be helpful and giving to somebody, but also knowing when you're giving out of a place that's a void, right? That you might have to practice self-care first and not deplete yourself before you can go and take care and hold space for others. Well, especially as a coach in this practice, I have to make sure that if I hold space for a lot of people, I have to also really be on my self-care practice. That I have the energy to hold that kind of space.
So not overcommitting yourself.
Yeah.
And not necessarily saying yes to every opportunity that comes your way.
Right, and for me, I think I said that in the beginning. I think I used to be so excited where my impulses led me astray very quickly, and I burned myself out. And I would say it was always done in good spirit. It wasn't. It was like, yes, that sounds like a great idea, but often not thought through that logistically. It put me in a position of just overwhelm. You know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Anything in general you want people to know, or tips that you give universally? I know we've been talking so much about individualizing things, but are there some, maybe a few things that you think are common denominators across the board that people maybe are not thinking about, that they can start to implement for themselves to make themselves, or put themselves in a position for easier, better growth?
I would say the number one thing is that upon awakening, when you start your day and you set a certain ritual or framework around that fosters growth and a positive attitude and magical thinking, you will find yourself staying in that mindset throughout the day, no matter what life throws your way. And learning how to practice that has, in my experience, and many people I've worked with, been a real game changer. That whatever you set, whatever intention you set in the morning, because you're coming out of your sleep state and you're moving into the realm of the living. It's a very beautiful space to come and harness these intentions in order to stay on course every single day.
Right, and I would imagine that most people, what they do the first thing in the morning when they open their eyes is grab their phone and start checking the notifications and all this, right? So what's the alternative?
I have great issues with that. And put your phone outside the bedroom, please. I think that checking in with yourself and grounding in first before you address the world is important. I think most of us get up, and look at the phone, start making coffee, taking a shower, put on makeup, and going to greet the world. I mean, we all brush our teeth to go and greet the world because we've learned that is something you do. And we haven't done a lot to take care of our mental health and emotional state and energetic levels, which are equally important. So I like to bring awareness to that might be a good starting point before we work out there. Right? Get into the right mind, connect to your body before you address the world by not keep your phone on airplane mode, use something else to wake you up in the morning, sit, meditate, whatever your practice might be. For me, it's like meditation, waking up, doing yoga, and then I turn on my phone. I read an article today that 10 a.m. is the best start day for a work day, and I'm just like, I agree, because I can't get all my rituals done before 10 a.m.
Yeah.
So it's always been my start day time.
Yeah. Oh, good one. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good place to end it. That's a good nugget for people. So let's all be a little more mindful about the way that we start our day and set the tone for the day, and let that set the framework for growth. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much
Silvia.
for having me.
Yeah, it's beautiful connecting with you, fellow nomad, on the road all around the world. So where's the best place for people to find you?
Sign up, go to my website, sign up for you can get a free guide to living, as I have it on there. Sign up for that. I've, frequently send out updates of where I am and what I'm doing, and you can stay in touch with me that way.
And your website again is?
SilviaChristmann.com.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that that's in the show notes for everybody as well. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Conscious Eating 101 e-course. This is a 6-week online course aimed at empowering you to make food choices that are in alignment with your values. The program is based on ahimsa, also known as non-harm, and helps you make every bite that you take an expression of love, self-love, animal love, and planet love. The course offers 15 lessons and 20 nutritious and delicious recipes and is offered over 6 weeks that you can do at your own pace. It includes lessons like plant-based nutrition, protein, dairy alternatives, the story on sugar, GMOs, label reading, and many more. If you're looking to increase your health and happiness, balance your weight, reduce your footprint on the planet, and align your food choices with your values, or are interested in being part of the solution to huge world problems like climate change, rainforest destruction, and world hunger, then this is the course for you. If this speaks to you, please check out consciouseating101.com today. Thanks so much for answering the call to be here today. I'm so glad you're part of our tribe of activated rainbow warriors. If you found the show in any way empowering or inspiring, I would be so grateful if you would share the show on social media or with friends and family that you think would benefit from these conversations. And also, rate and review the show in iTunes. This is really the very best way to help support the show and help us get noticed by others who are looking for the sort of content that we're sharing. Now notice there are no outside ads playing here. That's because the show is supported by you, the listener. You can become a patron of the show with a small monthly donation by checking out the perks on our Patreon page at patreon.com/visionary lifestyle and signing up there. There's also a one-time donation button on the podcast page of the website if that suits you better. And just so you know, your donations help to cover the necessary out-of-pocket monthly expenses to produce the show and will also help us grow so we can inspire and educate even more people. And hey tribe, I'd love to hear from you. Visit me at visionary-lifestyle.com and please tell me your comments and questions. I really look forward to connecting with you. I love you. Namaste.